Viewers, thank you for joining us on India Upfront. Iran firing 181 rockets towards Israel last night should have been one of the great eureka moments in modern geopolitics. It was the quintessential butterfly effect, where Israel's act of cutting the head of the snake in Lebanon forced Iran to reveal itself. Viewers, think about it. Why would Israel's actions and operations around its own borders trigger a self-defense reaction from Iran over at least 2,000 kilometers away? Hamas, the Houthis, and now Hezbollah, Iran's terror proxies, were revealed before the world's eyes when Tehran launched a frightening ballistic missile attack. Instead, it appears that, as usual, those who should be unequivocally condemning Iran for rampantly endangering the lives of 10 million Israelis have shot themselves in the foot. Israel closing its doors to the United Nations chief is an all-time low, the absolute pits for the global body which has a mandate towards maintaining peace. Already inundated with calls for reform and challenged by an increasingly influential G20, the UN has shot itself in the foot with its warped and, dare I say, the namby-pamby response to what is an existential threat to Israel. Antonio Guterres, who Israel says will go down in history as a stain on the history of United Nations, could not even bring himself to call out Iran by naming it directly. Viewers, the leader of an increasingly irrelevant and decrepit body, hamstrung by its own structure, has proved that both he and the organization he leads are dinosaurs clinging on to the world of vetoes and balancing acts that nobody wants anymore. And now, with the UN being tagged a persona non grata and the diplomatic road seemingly closed, the world can only wait and watch. What will Israel do now that the veil has come off and Iran has played its hand? And if Israel retaliates, what will an increasingly beleaguered Khamenei do? The US is on standby, armed to the teeth with its aircraft carrier groups on Iran's jugular. The stakes could not be higher. Viewers, one false move and this restive part of the world could easily descend into a catastrophe with millions of lives on the line.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו, ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו, אלה שלא מבינים זאת. הם יבינו. נעמוד בכלל שקבענו. מי שתוקף אותנו, אנחנו תוקפים אותו. זה נכון בכל מקום כשאנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע. זה נכון ליהודה ושומרון, זה נכון לעזה, ללבנון, לתימן, לסוריה, וזה נכון גם לאיראן. אנחנו נלחמים בציר הרשע בכל מקום.
مردم اونها مورد هدف قرار نگرفتن در حالی که این کار کاملا امکان پذیر بود. سپاه پاسداران و نیروهای مسلح جمهوری اسلامی ایران چه در بعد دفاعی و چه در بعد آفند و تکرار این تهاجم و چندین برابر این کاملا آماده هستند. اگر رژیم صهیونیستی که به دیوانگی رسیده کنترل نشه توسط امریکا و اروپا و بخواد چنین جنایت‌هایی رو ادامه بده و یا علیه حاکمیت و تمامیت ارضی ما وارد عمل بشه، عملیات امشب با چند برابر بزرگی تکرار خواهد شد و تمام زیرساخت‌های اونها مورد اصابت قرار خواهد گرفت.
At my direction, the United States military actively supported the defense of Israel, and we're still assessing the impact. But based on what we know now, the attack appears to have been defeated and ineffective. And this is testament to Israeli military capability and the U.S. military. Make no mistake, the United States is fully supportive of Israel.
Those were the reactions. Let's quickly open this up. Glenn Carl, former CIA and National Intelligence Officer for Transitional Threats. Jeremy Issakoff, former Vice Director General, Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and former Israel Ambassador to Germany. Chris Blackburn, International Affairs Commentator. Fatemeh Karim Khan, Iranian journalist. Major Gaurav Arya, Editor-in-Chief, Chanakya Forum. And Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, commentator, needs no introduction. Let's open this up quickly. Ms. Khan, what has Iran done? And why has it done this?
Iran is defending its own people inside and outside the country. Israel should understand that they cannot continue going door to door, assassinate other people, other military figures from other countries. There should be some response against these kind of assassinations. So it is not Iran.
No, Ms. Khan, what assassinations are you talking about?
What?
What assassinations are you talking about here?
They killed several Iranian figures back in Damascus months ago. Then they assassinate Ismail Haniyeh inside Iran. And then they assassinate some of IRGC figures who were with Hassan Nasrallah in Zahia.
Yeah, who was Nasrallah? Ma'am, I want you to tell us, who do you think Nasrallah was?
It is not my business to say who is Nasrallah. I am here as a commenter from inside Iran.
No, Ms. Khan, I respect that. I am only asking you to describe Nasrallah because you see, Nasrallah is not amongst us to, talk about himself. I want you to tell the world about who Nasrallah was.
I am not in place to describe who Nasrallah was. I'm sure that your guests and those who are following this conversation know who is Nasrallah and why he was this much important for not just for the resistance in the regime.
No. You're beating around the bush. Ms. Khan, 1 minute. You began by saying that we are doing this to avenge the death of some of our most revered figure. And then you are refusing to describe who Nasrallah was. What is the difficulty? You are an Iranian journalist.
It is not my job. It is not my job to describe Nasrallah. As I said, there were some of Iran's military figures who were assassinated. And Iran is answering to that act.
Okay, let's make it easier for you. Mr. Kal, would you like to tell Fatemeh Karim Khan who Nasrallah was?
Well, sure. I mean, it's a little surprising that this is a bone of contention here. Nasrallah was the leader of Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a creature of Iran. It's a proxy force for Iran to project its power and harass Israel, but fundamentally to extend Iranian power in the Middle East. Nasrallah is responsible for hundreds of deaths, including hundreds of Americans, over the past 40 years. And that's why he was killed.
Now, Mr. Kal, let me ask you, how do you see this attack by Iran on Israel?
Well, Iran, I'll take Iran's position for a second. Iran was in a bit of a dilemma because it has been repeatedly humiliated and shown to be impotent by astoundingly impressive Israeli intelligence and military operations, all of which have been in response to Iranian provocations. So Iran, in order to maintain some influence or sense of personal honor, has felt obliged to respond. But the attack by Israel on Iran was because, or the impending attack, Iran's attack on Israel was to maintain some sense or perception of capability. That's why Iran launched missiles. I think if Israel were wise, it would accept the status of Iran's humiliation and continue to focus on the degradation of Hezbollah, which is really the proxy problem.
Okay. Ms. Khan, is this how you show your capability, by attacking women and children, by attacking innocents with missiles?
I'm not speaking from the point of view of our government. I'm here to describe the situation. But if you are this much interested about innocent lives, why you do not speak about those who were killed in Gaza? Why do you not speak about those who are right now killing inside Lebanon? Why you are not speaking about those who were killed during these 17 years of occupation?
Ma'am, I don't think you know what we've said before. We've always taken a position Now, to answer that question, let me bring in Ambassador Isakov. Ambassador Isakov, what would you tell Fatemeh Karim Khan, who is justifying this attack by Iran on Israel?
Well, first of all, I think she should update herself about Nasrallah. And as the previous gentleman said, this was a terrorist who was in charge of Hezbollah, which is financed by Iran, and has attacked Israel over the years, over the last 30 to 40 years, killing hundreds of Israelis, they have blood, American blood, French blood on their hands from terrorist attacks against the American Marines in Beirut and French soldiers. So let's also first get into proportion who Hassan Nasrallah was. He was a bloodthirsty terrorist, period. And he was attacking Israel after October 7th. Ms. Khan, I think you should remember, October 7th, Hamas started this war, killed over 1,500 Israelis, took 250 Israelis hostages, and everything else that happened on that dreadful day. And Hezbollah started shelling Israel with hundreds of rockets. They've been shelling Israel with thousands of rockets since October the 7th over the last year. Up till now, we've acted with restraint, trying to contain this threat, but it got to a point where it cannot be left unanswered. And just one last thing. You talked about Ismail Haniyeh. You know, Iran, if you don't want to get involved in his politics in the Middle East, don't host Hamas terrorist leaders in your own capital. And don't keep supporting terrorists that are attacking Israel and threatening Israel's national security. If you do that, you will receive a very resolute Israeli response.
Ms. Khan, would you like to respond to that?
Yes, we are. People here are very much waiting to see what is the Israeli response is. But if you are this much upset about Americans' blood on the hand of some guy like Nasrallah or anyone else, why you do not comment about Shirin Abu Akleh? Isn't she another American who were killed by Israeli army? Are you have anything to say about the Israeli army and what this army is doing right now inside and outside Gaza and the whole regime?
Ma'am, do you like to go back in time, talk about what happened on October 7th?
We can talk about whatever you want, but I have to insist that I am not here to speak from the point of view of the government.
No, I am not asking you. No, I am not asking you to echo that point of view. I am asking you as an independent journalist that you are, right?
So it was wrong. It was morally undefeatable. Okay, so is it okay for you to watching 2020 people, tens of thousands people get killed inside Gaza just because of Hamas doing something against Israel? Isn't it should be against Hamas itself and not the civilians who lived in Gaza, who lived in West Bank, and who lived in Beirut, who lived in Lebanon?
Very well for you to say that, Ms. Khan, but I think you just forgot that the missile strike from Iran in Israel was not controlled, wasn't targeted. Dr. Ranganathan.
Wasn't targeted, so if it wasn't targeted, if it was targeting civilians, there should be civilian casualties. Why there is no civilian casualties? There's just one civilian casualties.
Oh, so the Iron Dome prevented, no, 1 minute. Now you have a problem why there are no civilian casualties. You should be happy. Why are you complaining?
No.
Okay, let Dr. Ranganathan come in now. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
Good evening, Pranesh, and good evening to my fellow panelists. I think Ms. Khan has made her inclinations amply clear. I'm astonished that a simple question was asked of her. Who do you think was Nasrallah? And she said, it is not for me to answer it. What if you were to ask her, Pranesh, who was Osama bin Laden? Would her response be the same? I'm intrigued to find out. So please ask her who was Osama bin Laden.
I said, I am not here to describe the history of the regime. I am not here to answer some kind of Wikipedia question.
Ms. Khan, this is not
Another
Wikipedia. These are not ordinary individuals that we are talking about. These are dreaded terrorists, global terrorists. And you can't get yourself to even name them? Dr. Ranganathan.
Yes, anyhow, as I said, the inclinations are very clear. But, I want to stick to India because although 1.15 billion Indians stand with Israel, the rest don't. You have to understand the psyche of those who understand and this whole predicament, and they are, despite this, standing against Israel. Pranesh, have you ever wondered that a small sliver of land surrounded by the richest, the wealthiest nations in the world, the Arab states, remains the poorest when the same nations have converted deserts into Dubai, and yet Gaza remains the poorest, filthiest, sickest, most dangerous of places in the world? Why? Because they want to play the victim card. Just like after they start the violence, kill Jews, they march down their dead killed in retaliatory Israeli action where most of them are human shields to show the world that Israel is the oppressor. They project Gaza as an open-air prison and gutter because Israel has made it so, they say. They care more about denigrating Israel than about developing Palestine. That's the truth. And why do these leftists and Islamists who want to ban India's trade with Israel not demand a ban on India's trade with China, given that China has demolished 700-800 mosques and interned 1.5 million Muslims in concentration camps and is feeding them pork and sterilizing them because their salaries would stop? The point of the matter, as I said, is 1.15 billion Indians stand with Israel, shoulder to shoulder, because supporting Israel is not only moral, it is imperative that we do so. We'll be repaying a debt, and that is what friends do. Let me explain first the debt, Pranesh, very briefly. Have we forgotten that in the wake of Pokhran II, when the world slapped sanctions against us and Pakistan invaded us in Kargil, the tide was turned by Israel supplying us with weaponry, going against world sanctions? Let us also not forget that all Arab friends ditched us during our 1971 war with Pakistan. It was Israel that came to our help despite America warning it not to. Facts that emerged from the explosive Haksar papers. And how did we repay Israel then? By not backing it during its Yom Kippur war in 1973. Now the moral question, very briefly. I would like to make a few points and they need to be internalized because these are irrefutable facts, not opinion. Hamas and Hezbollah use residential areas and hospitals as ammunition dumps and patients as human shields, rendering Geneva Convention invalid. And here is the thing. The hospitals in Gaza were safe and functioning well till October 6 last year, one day. And they would have continued to be safe and function well beyond had Hamas not murdered 1,400 innocent Jews and microwave babies in October 7 and brought this war upon itself. So let me be clear. Hamas and Hezbollah alone are responsible for the Gaza tragedy.
Chris Blackburn, before I bring you in, I quickly want to bring in Major Gaurav Arya. Major Arya, the kind of commentary we've seen over the last 2 days, does it concern you? People who are talking about human rights suddenly changed goalposts, changed their stance and were cheering for Iran that launched missile strikes on innocent Israelis.
No, you see, I would agree with what Dr. Ranganathan just said, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And before I answer your question, I would like to add that we did wrong to Israel, right? There was a time when Israel helped us. We did not even recognize Israel. So there is much to be made up. And I think India should stand very firmly, no if, no but. Now, I would also like to say that, all this nexus of the radical Islamists and leftists, what they're doing is painting Iran to be the victim. Iran is the head of the snake. Let's be clear. I would go as far as to say that the real problem is not Hezbollah or Hamas. The real problem is Iran. We must recognize this problem. It is Iran that is funding the Hezbollah. It is Iran that is funding and arming the Houthis. It is Iran that is arming the Hamas. Why should Ms. Khan get so upset about the killing of Nasrallah? Is he an Iranian national? Or was he an Iranian national? Why is she so concerned about Gaza? Let me tell you. This is nothing except You know, in some Muslim countries, they've got together and made it a Muslim problem or a Muslim issue. And they are also correct, because this is exactly why they hate the Jews. I will say this very loudly and let anybody who has a problem understand this loud and clear. They hate Israel not because of this so-called fake narrative of occupation of Palestine. They hate Israel because more than 80% Israelis are Jews. They hate the Jews, and this hate has been continuing for more than 1400 years. This is religiously sanctioned hate. Right? Now, among the left and the Islamist nexus in India, you know, they will never say anything to China. They will not even say anything to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, by the way, bombed and killed more than 3 lakh Yemenis, that is 300,000 Yemenis. They conducted airstrikes. Nobody even talks about it. And what are these figures they are giving about Gaza? Who has given these figures? Who has counted the dead bodies in Gaza? These are all Hamas figures, this so-called health ministry of Gaza. What is health ministry of Gaza? It's nothing but Hamas. I think what Israel must do is hit back Tehran so hard that their mad clergy, this complete lunatic of a man, right, who's the supreme leader of Iran, he needs to go. This regime needs to fall, because they are the people, they are poisoning the entire Middle East. Unfortunately, we have some sort of a relationship with Iran. I don't know why. I disagree with our relationship with Iran, but the problem is that Iran is the source of all poison. That is why nobody likes them. Many Muslim countries don't like Iran. They dislike Iran because Iran arms and funds terror groups. It is not just that they're doing it to the Israelis. They're doing it to Saudi Arabia. They're doing it to Jordan. They're doing it to Iraq. They're doing it to Syria. They're doing it to Yemen. They have spoiled and vitiated the entire atmosphere of the Middle East. And this regime needs to go. I stand with Israel. I think we need to make up for what wrong we have done to Israel in the past. We carried out Balakot. Where do you think those Spice 2000 bombs came from? They came from Israel. Who helped us with the laser-guided bombs in Kargil? It was Israel. Israel has stood with us even when we did not have diplomatic relations with Israel. And how did we repay Israel? How did we repay? We have not been good friends. Now we have started to be good friends, and we must stand with Israel. I personally, as an individual, stand with Israel, and I think the entire Indian nation should stand, the government should stand firmly behind Israel.
Yeah, so, you know, Major Arya, you are being charitable. What you are saying is that stop this monkey balancing, stand with Israel. That is what you are saying. Ms. Khan, you were talking about, you know, the retaliation from Israel, and you said, bring it on. Chris Blackburn, how do you think Israel will how do you think Israel will respond, or should respond?
I don't know. I don't have any clue. I don't have any clue. First of all, I have to clear that I'm not speaking about Hezbollah or some.
That's okay, but as a journalist, ma'am, you must take a principled stand. You could not even, you know, condemn, name and shame a terrorist. Forget anything else. Chris,
let me finish. Let me finish. There is a there is some debates in the regime about naming people as terrorists. It is not just limited to Hezbollah or Hamas. It is true about Taliban. It is true about Al-Qaeda. It is true about lots of people and lots of figures, lots of political groups. And
political groups, Dr. Ranganathan, terrorism and political groups are the same.
Let me finish.
You can put any tag. But Ms. Khan would not agree.
Sorry, let me finish,
this is
please.
unbelievable. Ms. Khan is not prepared. Ms. Khan is not prepared to say Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda are terrorists. I am just shocked. How can she be a journalist? Journalists supposed to be objective. The people who flew planes on 9/11 on American World Trade Center were not terrorists.
And tell people that Osama bin Laden is a terrorist. See how they will respond to you. Sorry, let me continue my point. Let me finish my point. I was making a statement about Israel killing army figures of Iran outside and inside Iran. Israel was doing repeated assassinations.
No, 1 minute. What are 1 minute, ma'am? 1 minute. Outside Iran, what are army figures of? No. What are 1 minute, ma'am? Miss Khan, 1 minute. You just said it yourself. 1 minute. What are Iranian army figures doing anything outside Iran? What are they doing? Training other people.
Don't
Chris
India
Blackburn.
have any? Don't India have any?
1 minute. Let Chris now come in. He's been patiently listening to all of this. Chris, what do you make of this, and what do you make of the response from Ms. Khan?
Well, I think it's a natural response from Ms. Khan. I think people are in two minds. People want to protect the Palestinians and innocents in this conflict, but also the realism is there's a nation, Iran, that has stood beside Hezbollah, has stood beside Hamas, stood beside the Houthis, and caused so much damage. I don't think what Hamas did on October 7th would have happened if it hadn't been for the covert support that the organization gets from Tehran. So ultimately, what is Israel's options? And I think it's got some very difficult options going forward, because we ultimately know that if Iran and the regime in Tehran get the nuclear weapons, that we will see these nuclear weapons being unleashed in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. Right? That is how the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu thinks, and that is what Iran is stating it wants to do. So if Israel has to deal with that threat, that existential threat. The next step is, and I think Benjamin Netanyahu's right, he said, the next step is, and this war will ultimately end in Tehran. And I think that's basically what will happen. So, Ms. Khan, I think the Israelis and others will be looking for regime change in your country pretty soon.
Let me bring in Mr. Karl once again. Sir, what do you make of Ayatollah Khamenei's comment when he says that conflict in the region would be eliminated if the villainy of the US, his words not mine, if the villainy of the US and certain European countries is removed?
Well, as an American and as an former American officer, I'm accustomed to hearing us be characterized as the great Satan and the origin of all evil. You know, the joke is that if a traffic light goes out someplace in the world, it's the CIA that's behind it, and that therefore we have to be stopped. I mean, of course, this is the ostensible justification that the Iranians have for their policies and their regime. You know, they were a revolutionary regime. They are now a thugocracy that has only one thing to sell to mask its grasp of power, or maintaining power, and that is its hostility to Jews, to Israel, and to the great state of the United States. So, you know, I'm not impressed by their creative thinking.
Okay, but you know, Iran stands isolated at the moment, but now that the US has backed Israel, and there are deals between Iran and Russia, if Russia were to come to aid of Iran, what are we looking at in that situation?
Well, that's, I think, the critical point. So, you know, Israel has its existential day-to-day issues that it must deal with. Hezbollah has rendered the northern part of Israel difficult to live. I've been there and seen it, and what no state can possibly accept that a significant percentage of its territory be rendered uninhabitable. However, there actually is a larger picture that you just touched upon, and that is what is happening to what we used to call the post-war world and the normative international order. And there's clearly, as the relative, I don't want to use the word decline, but as other nations have increased in their power, the normative order that the United States sort of championed or maintained is now not just challenged, but being replaced by something else. And that North Korea and China and Russia are the four parties that are actively seeking to undermine this. India sometimes plays an ambiguous game, actually, because it's happy to profit from all sides. But the Israeli problems in Iran factor into what will happen. Now, for Saudi Arabia and Israel to actually be able to reach a peace accord, which is what I think Hamas's objective was on October 7th, was to derail, to upset this broader Middle Eastern realignment, then the world will be a very, very different place. And how Israel and the United States respond to Iran and Hezbollah is part of this larger game.
Ambassador Isakov, what will Israel do now? People want to know How will you do it? When will you do it?
Well, first of all, I really want to just mention that I have a great deal of appreciation for our distinguished Indian colleagues regarding their support for Israel. And this is something that is not just between governments, but it's between two peoples. And I remember well the crisis of Kargil and how we stood next to India in dealing with that threat to Indian national security. So I appreciate very much their words. Now, let's just take one step back. In April 14th, Iran launched well over 300 projectiles towards Israel, ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Yesterday evening, I was with my wife and daughter, and we saw a barrage of missiles coming over, ran into the bomb shelter. These missiles could have landed anywhere. We counted 181 ballistic missiles. And let me remind you that each ballistic missile can carry anywhere between over a ton of TNT to half a ton to 1 ton. And this was, I don't remember, remind me, Ms. Khan, when Israel showered missiles all over Tehran or any other Iranian city. You attacked us on April 14th, and according to foreign reports, we attacked you afterwards, but very selectively, very surgically, and not killing one civilian. You targeted civilians. And by the way, number one, you didn't kill civilians because we are very disciplined. And as soon as we hear the sirens and the early warning, we go into the shelters. Number two, we have a very effective defense mechanism, one of the best in the world against missiles, which you don't have. And that defended and intercepted these shells. And actually, there was one civilian casualty. You know who it was? It was a Palestinian from Gaza who happened to be in Israeli territory. So, you know, this was a brilliant move on your part to show your solidarity with the Palestinian people. So when we discover and think about what we're going to do, we can't let these attacks go unanswered. And believe me, we will find our time. And we've shown that your missile attacks have been actually not shows.
No, I asked her that question, strength. Ambassador Isakov. I asked that question of Ms. Khan. She says, bring it on.
Okay, well, you know what? I will suggest to her, you do not have the missile defense mechanism that we have. We have the ability to get to anywhere we want.
But they have Khomeini that you don't have.
And so I would suggest, you know, we'll pick our time and place, but this will not go answered. And I want to stress one last thing. We do not have a conflict with the Iranian people. In my opinion, Iranian people, Israeli people could be, you know, such great friends and allies. You have this extremist government that is dedicated to Israel's destruction and is financing all these different terrorist organizations from the Houthis.
I'm glad that you've underlined that point, that there's no problem with the Iranian people, the civilian population there. Dr. Ranganathan wants to say something. Yes, sir.
We have never,
quickly,
I just want...
Yeah. Yes, thank you very much to Mr. Jeremy for his words. If I may just spend a minute, I'm very glad that America is supporting Israel today and yesterday. It was a really vociferous support. But can I also rebut a little the ex-CIA officer, Mr. Kahl, because especially now that he's ex-CIA, so he won't be able to come after me or send his cat after me. But the fact of the matter is that there is a difference between why India supports Israel and America supports any country. India supports countries based on its moral thrust, like we supported South Africa and we were against apartheid. India is supporting Israel because of morality and ethics. America supports Israel or any other country based on its motives and interests. As Kissinger said, to be America's enemy is dangerous, but to be America's friend is downright fatal. Now, of course, there are internal dynamics of America, why America is supporting Israel. Let us remember that for much of the 80s, the real freedom fighter and America's friend was Osama bin Laden. Let us remember that for 30 years when Pakistan was perpetrating terror day upon day on us, its biggest ally was America funding Pakistan. So let's not be under this illusion that if India is under some trouble, America will come and help us out of its altruistic reasons. I just wanted to say this with due respect to Mr. Kahl, who is now ex-CIA.
Mr. Kahl.
Oh my gosh. I think we should keep the conversation focused on Iran and Israel and Gaza right now. I won't surprise anyone to say that I have a slightly different interpretation of American motivation, or India in particular, but that's secondary for now.
Okay. But I want to go back to Major Gaurav Arya. Major Arya, you know, for viewers watching our broadcast, yes, Ambassador, you were saying something.
Yeah, if I could just look, I think this discussion is very important, but let's not forget one thing. As we are involved in this situation, this war, the threat and stability of the region is very much at risk. And it's even more so at risk is that while we have attention looking at what's going on in Lebanon, in Gaza, let's not forget what's going on with the Iranian nuclear program. And if Iran has been a threat to Middle Eastern and world stability up till now, since the ex-President Trump cancelled the agreement, the nuclear agreement in 2018, Iran has developed its program to the most advanced level in terms of level of enrichment, also in terms probably of what they've been able to do in weaponizing and getting a device. And I would urge everyone not to forget this. If Iran is a problem with its present capabilities, I shudder to think what they will be like with a nuclear.
No, so Ambassador, are you hinting at a nuclear escalation?
I'm not hinting at anything. I'm just pointing out that this is a problem that, you know, we will look to all of our friends to work together. There's not, you know, there are different ways, and over the years, a lot of work has been done diplomatically to disrupt and delay the Iranian nuclear program. All I'm saying, there is nothing at this point which is holding back the Iranians from going forward with their program. And it's of great concern, not only to us, but to all of our moderate Arab neighbors.
Okay. I'll get, you know, ask that question of Chris, but before that, Major Arya, you know, for viewers watching our broadcast, I want you to explain, if not for the Iron Dome defense system, what would have happened?
Three things. It's Arrow 3, it's David Sling, and it's Iron Dome. Iron Dome is the one with the shortest influence, but somehow it has become a legend, and all of us talk about the Iron Dome, but then there is David Sling, and then there is the Arrow 3. It could have, you know, extremely bad, because as the ambassador very rightly said, half a ton, 1 ton of TNT, hundreds upon hundreds of missiles landing. I shudder to think what would have happened, mass civilian casualties. That. Number two, what I would like to say is that I would like to pay my respects. I just saw in the news on my phone, 8 Israeli soldiers have lost their lives. And Ambassador, please accept our condolences. This is a very sad day for us. And I hope Israel, you know, absolutely decimates the Hezbollah. We don't want any trace of Hamas or Hezbollah on planet Earth. Till the last man, you know, I support Benjamin Netanyahu when he said that every Hamas man is a dead man walking, and he should say the same about Hezbollah. Every Hezbollah man is a dead man walking. The third point that I want to make here is we should thank Israel simply because I think it's not about Israel fighting Hezbollah or Hamas or Iran. That is not the point. Israel is fighting our war for us because we have common enemies. Israel is fighting our wars. Those 8 soldiers, Israeli soldiers who gave up their lives, did not do so only for Israel. They gave up their lives also for India and rest of the civilized world. And I would like to salute them. And like Ms. Khan said, bring it on. Ma'am, I would just like to tell you, I can't see you on screen because I don't have a screen in front of me. I would just like to tell you, when those F-35s fly over Tehran, believe me, you won't want to say bring it on, because your radars do not have the capability to see those F-35 lightnings flying over Tehran, and fly over Tehran they will.
Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
Completely agree with Major Arya and the ambassador. But I'd like to say this while keeping the discussion, if I may, India-centric, because when the good ambassador talked about the real dangers of Iran turning out to be nuclear, the fact of the matter is that we already have a rogue Islamic terror state that is already nuclear, Pakistan. Now, what is more dangerous or less dangerous than a nuclear Pakistan? I don't know. So, this dynamics of Iran being nuclear suddenly being, the kind of most dangerous thing for the world, I don't buy that, because we already have someone who, in their spirit, the nation is supporting, all the terrorists that have ganged up against Israel. What is stopping Pakistan from brokering some deal and, giving up its nuclear bomb or facilities to these rogue terrorists? So please do not ignore Pakistan being a nuclear state. That's all I'm trying to say.
No, I'm glad that we're talking about this, because if you see the comments of the former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, he says positions of Nasrallah and Ismail Haniya are very high in the eyes of God as they sacrifice their lives in defense of their countries. So this is the position.
Yeah.
Chris?
I think that what we've seen from Imran Khan and the Pakistanis is that is the exact state that we do not want to see Tehran turn into, because once they have those nuclear weapons, then these actions that they're already doing in West Asia will accelerate. We've seen that Pakistan, it's got complete impunity. Even when NATO was camped out next door in Afghanistan, we saw Pakistan using terrorism, like mass atrocity terrorism, as if it was like a sport. So I think Jeremy was right. I think what Benjamin Netanyahu has said, that he wants ultimately the Persian people and the Jewish people to be friends, and the only obstacle to that is the mullahs in Tehran. And I think now is the time, and it is such an existential threat that Israel
Chris,
has to.
I want to ask you this. Look, people are writing about it, talking about it. A lot of commentary is going on. Well, here's a simple question. So far, we were talking about dealing with proxies. Now, there's a country involved. We're talking about the state of Iran.
Yeah, I completely agree. But I think we always knew that in the beginning. We know that Hamas wouldn't have done this actions without the tacit support from Qatar and Iran. So we knew that from the beginning. But it was sort of shadow boxing at the very beginning of the conflict. But now the curtain has literally dropped, and we're now getting to the big end stages of the conflict.
Ms. Khan, can Iran really withstand an Israeli invasion? Are you in a position to say, bring it on?
Actually, I didn't say bring it on. I said do whatever it is necessary for your peace. And Iran, I have to insist that I am not speaking from the point of view of the government. I am speaking from the point of view of a free journalist. But
I think you said bring it on, but I think after what Major Arya said about the F-35, you are now beginning to rethink. I'm glad. I'm glad that he could at least inject sense into you. The ambassador is back. Yes, sir. I think you wanted to make a point.
Please, yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to leave because it's the Jewish New Year, and I want to wish you all a happy New Year. And it is very sad.
To you too.
Thank you for the condolences. Just as I was getting onto the panel, I saw this terrible news of 8 more soldiers killed, and this is. It's a very heavy burden to bear, but we need to do what we can to defend ourselves. And also at these hours, it's also very important to feel your friendship and the friendship of the people of India. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, Ambassador Isatov. We'll let you go. Thank you, Mr. Karl. Chris, thank you for joining us. Ms. Khan, stay safe. Thank you for joining us. Vivek Srivastav, we've been talking about this. In fact, last evening, you were on the panel, and we were talking about human rights. This was, a few hours before Iran launched that missile strike on Israel. Would you condemn Iran, sir, for targeting innocents?
Right. No, I will condemn Israel and Iran in the same breath. If I do criticize, I will not criticize only Iran. There were guests of the new leadership that was being sworn in Iran, and Israel intruded and killed them. It is a fight for the land. The map of Israel and Palestine made by the United Nations, applicable in 1948, changed by the time 1960s. And by the time it was 1990s, the Palestinians were reduced to a very small Gaza Strip and a little more area. So when you start intruding upon the land of the others, the freedom fighters of that country fight.
Freedom fighters. Nasrallah was a freedom fighter. Dr. Ranganathan, Vivek Srivastava never fails to surprise me.
No, as a true communist and a dear friend, he never lets facts come in the way. The Jews were in the land of Israel more than 1,000 years before Islam was even born. So this argument that the land does not belong to Jews is totally wrong.
No.
King David found it
5,000 years back.
Sorry, sir. Now, we cannot argue like
wrong logic.
This is not the way debate is conducted.
5,000 साल पहले चले जाएंगे.
अरे यार,
ये लॉजिक नहीं है, ये हिस्ट्री है.
This is not a logic.
Vivek, can you please not? You want to take my time?
Let him make his point. Vivek Srivastava, I'll come back to you. Let Dr. Ranganathan speak. Yeah.
Yes. As I was saying, the Jews were in the land of Israel more than 1,000 years before Islam was even born. So Vivek's argument that the land doesn't belong to Jews is totally wrong. King David founded his kingdom 1700 years before Islam. थोड़ा history पढ़ लिया होता तो बात चलती ना. And what is symbolized in the Israeli flag, if I can ask? The Star of David. The Jews were driven out of Israel 500 years before Islam, after the defeat of Simon Bar Kokhba in the Jewish-Roman War. And importantly, while the Israel Declaration of Independence Charter does not discriminate between Jews and Muslims, the Charter of Hamas, democratically elected, by the way, by the Palestinians, proclaims that the day of judgment will not come until Muslims fight Jews and kill them. Israel will continue to exist until Islam obliterates it, just as it obliterated others before it. And the fact also is, talking about land, Vivek, thoda seekh lo yaar. Israel has voluntarily given up land, Sinai, West Bank, Gaza, that it had taken over after the Arab-Israeli wars. If it was the perennial aggressor, why would it do so? That's the problem, because Israel believes in two-state solution, where Israel and Palestine can live peacefully side by side. Hamas does not. And finally, 10 seconds. All this thing about India should ban trade with Israel, all the communists and Vivek are shouting. Bhai, jara ye bhi bol do, should India ban trade with China that has demolished 1,700 mosques and has interned 1.5 million Muslims in concentration camps?
You've touched a raw nerve, Vivek Srivastava.
China के बारे में कुछ नहीं बोलोगे? अब कहोगे fake news है, कहेगा ये CIA agent है.
Okay. Now let me speak. For me, the history of the conflict starts in 1947. By your logic, I can go 5,000 years back in this country and say this country has a copyright only of the Hindus and the minorities should not be allowed. This logic doesn't work.
This is not logic.
And it was in 1947-48 that the United Nations declared. Sir, let me speak. आपने वो भाषण करवा दिया आनंद रंगनाथन से, हमें बोलने तो दीजिए. 1948, United Nations made a map. Is that map still valid is my question. Why did you eat up the land of the Palestinians? It is a laughing matter. आपके देश में चाइना घुस जाएगा तो रोगे बैठ के, लड़ोगे ना? हम भी लड़ेंगे चाइना से अगर हमारे देश में आएगा.
नहीं, आप कैसे लड़ेंगे? विवेक श्रीवास्तव, आप कैसे लड़ेंगे चाइना से? Okay, let's get serious now. Vivek Srivastava, 1 minute. You began by calling those people freedom fighters. Would you like to name some of the freedom fighters? Let's pay our respects. बताइए sir. Let's name them.
Nasrallah, Osama bin Laden.
No. You start with Yasser Arafat, and there are so many people. I mean, you want to say that anybody can encroach anybody's land? And just because this Prime Minister has become an American stooge, Atal Bihari Vajpayee clearly said, sir, कि पैलेस्टीन पे पूरा अधिकार फिलिस्तीन के लोगों का है और इजराइल का हक नहीं है. जाके इतिहास चेक करिए. 1938, even 10 years before Israel was made, Mahatma Gandhi in the magazine Harijan wrote on 26th of November 1938 that just like English,
Vivek Srivastava, calm down. Vivek Srivastava, calm down. Don't, 1 minute. 1 minute, Vivek Srivastava, calm down.
No.
I am reading from the Hamas charter. Sir, सुनिए क्या बोला. Vivek Srivastava, 1 minute. Sir, 1 minute. Calm down. 1 minute.
And Islamophobia.
At the mere mention of China, you get aggressive. ऐसे मत कीजिए. देखिए, I am reading the Hamas charter. Reading from the Hamas charter.
मैंने गांधी बोला है.
Israel सुन लीजिए. Israel will exist and will continue to exist until Islam. अभी बोला तो डॉक्टर रंगनाथन ने पढ़.
Sorry, sir. Hamas is not Palestine.
What is Hamas? Hamas is what? Hamas is a freedom fighter. Major Arya.
Yes. Who is Gandhi? Is he wrong? Is Nehru wrong? Is Vajpayee wrong? Are all the prime ministers of this country before Modi wrong?
क्या हो गया आपको? विवेक श्रीवास्तव, calm down. विवेक श्रीवास्तव.
Give a full status to the embassy of Israel
Oh.
in 1990s.
Major Arya.
Yeah. I would like to say two things here. First of all, Vivek Srivastav made a very impassioned speech and he said that, Zameen gher li hai and all that. Freedom fighting kar rahe hain.
नहीं, वो बोल रहे हैं कि if China attacks, हम भी जाएंगे लड़ने.
It's true. When you attack, नहीं, कुछ नहीं करेंगे ये, कुछ नहीं, इन्होंने कख नहीं करना. I'll just tell you. Basically, all these Muslim countries surrounding Israel attacked Israel not once but few times. We only talk about 67 and 73. Why did they attack Israel? They attacked Israel because from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And Israel comes right in between. So when they attacked Israel, they wanted to take Israel's land. Israel defeated them and took their land. Isme rona kis cheez ka hai? All is fair. If that is the intent with which you attacked Israel, and if Israel beat you, 5 countries attacked Israel all at once. 5 countries. Israel thrashed them in the 6-day war, though initially there was setbacks. Of course there were setbacks. And then in 1973 there was the Yom Kippur War. Again all these bunch of countries attacked them on Yom Kippur when they knew that the Jews would not fight on that day because it is Yom Kippur. So when they attacked Israel, they attacked because they wanted to take Israel. They attacked because they wanted to take Israeli land and drive the Jews into the sea. That was their intent of attacking. Now they got thrashed and Israel took their land. So I don't think anybody should cry. As far as the Chinese coming and Vivek Srivastav saying that, he will fight, I'm happy he said that, at least whether he means it or not, only his heart knows. But I would request him, Vivek bhai, itna aap kyun परेशान हो जाते हैं, impassioned हो जाते हैं? It's all right, it's okay, sir. It's all right. Don't get so upset. You're shouting, screaming at every panelist. I did not bomb Hamas. Though I wish I had, but I did not bomb Hamas, sir. And neither did Anand Ranganathan.
Ahmad Ayaz, okay. Ahmad Ayaz, Vivek Srivastav, 1 minute. Ahmad Ayaz, I'll make it easier for you, sir. Would you like to condemn Israel for deploying the Iron Dome to shoot down Iranian missile? बता दीजिए.
See, this is one incident you have talked about, but you'll have to see around and how all this conflict came about. It is the international community which made Israel to settle down around Palestinian, and unfortunately
it's not about that. We are talking about what happened last night. Where did the missiles come from? Ahmad Ayaz, where did the missiles come from?
That's a retaliation. No, that is but natural. That is but natural.
Oh,
Any
but natural.
will get retaliated. This is what has been done. So that is expected of. Why? Because when you cause atrocities somewhere, and then you can't expect people to...
What happened on October 7th? What happened on October 7th?
No, don't take, that's what I said, don't take isolated incidents.
I have given up, sorry sir, for want of time, I am, letting this pass. Dr. Ranganathan, we're completely out of time. I thank all of you, Major Arya, Dr. Ranganathan, Vivek Srivastav, Ahmad Ayaz Saab, मैं याद रखूंगा, next time इसका जवाब ले लीजिएगा आप. Taking a short break, the news are with Navika Kumar on the other side.